Thank you for joining us. I'm Felicity Iziwike. Let's begin with updates on the 79th United Nations General Assembly. The Kenyan President, William Ruto, says as some nations are increasingly choosing unilateralism and militarization over dialogue and diplomacy, the them versus us mentality has escalated tensions and eroded trust in the global multilateral system. He said this on Thursday at the 79th session of the United Nations General Assembly. According to Ruto, sophisticated cyber attacks on critical infrastructure and climate change are increasingly fueling instability and conflict around the world.
A challenging moment and in a most precarious international security dispensation. The promise of the United Nations Charter to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war has been profoundly shaken. From land to sea and from air to the outer space, global peace, security, and stability are increasingly under threat. Conflicts and tensions pervade every frontier, undermining the collective security that international cooperation seeks to uphold. Cases of polarizing narratives, factionalism, social upheavals, organized crime, war, and stockpiling of weapons of mass destruction are at an all-time high. Great power rivalry is intensifying, provoking regional competition and inducing geopolitical and geoeconomic realignments and tensions. The subtle nuances of them versus us has produced negative coalitions, wars, tensions, as well as eroded trust and confidence in global multilateral system.
Meanwhile, Sudan's army chief has raised the alarm at the United Nations that months of war in his country could spill over into the region, and he called for international pressure to be placed on the paramilitary forces he is fighting. Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, speaking at the 79th UN General Assembly in New York, called on the international community on Thursday to designate the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, RSF, as a terrorist organization and to target its sponsors outside Sudan's borders.
Sudan is facing very serious challenges. And in fact, a war is being waged. There's a conspiracy. A war is being waged by a group that has rebelled against the state for many years. It's receiving political and logistical support at the local and regional levels. You've all witnessed the crimes, the violations, and the atrocities committed by these rebels, targeting the Sudanese people and the Sudanese state. The war began with an attempt to seize power through force. With time, it's transformed into a total war against the Sudanese state and the Sudanese people. Countless crimes have been committed: ethnic cleansing, forced displacement, and genocide. All of this has been committed by the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF, which should be considered a terrorist group. This militia is continuing to perpetrate crimes, and it is most unfortunate that it is receiving the support of some states in the region. States which are providing funding and mercenaries for their own political and economic benefit, in flagrant violation of law and international will.
President of the Central African Republic, Faustin Teodora, has expressed gratitude to the United Nations for the role it played in the lifting of sanctions and embargo on the moving of diamonds. He said this on the podium at the 79th UN General Assembly in New York. Teodora said that the theme for the debates, leaving no one behind, acting together for the advancement of peace, sustainable development and human dignity for present and future generations, resonated with the ideals of the Central African Republic.
To you, the gratitude of the Central African Republic and my country's full support, as well as the support of the government. We support your various initiatives which seek to make the United Nations a place where the efforts of nations come together. As you know, on the 30th of July of this year, the United Nations Security Council decided to lift in its entirety the unjust, illegitimate, and iniquitous arms embargo that had been imposed on the Central African Armed Forces for a decade. An embargo which caused us irreparable harm over those 10 years. Speaking from this rostrum, I'd like to extend to you the gratitude of the Central African people. We're grateful to the UN Security Council for its wise decision. A decision which, although belated, will allow my country to continue to act so as to rebuild international and national peace and security, and to work together with other states in the pursuit of peace, sustainable development, and the human dignity of present and future generations.
Let's head now to the side event of the ongoing United Nations General Assembly. Global Business Africa Initiative brought together influential African leaders from government, business and civil society to explore economic opportunities across the African continent. Notable speakers on Thursday were former Vice President Yemi Osinbajo and Director General of the World Trade Organization, Okonjo-Iweala. While speaking, pointed out several challenges affecting trade in Africa.
So for business people at least, so that they could move quickly and freely, I don't think we've arrived there. Some of the major infrastructure projects that could link countries, and here's where you come to trade, they're still on the drawing board. And the one thing I will always continue to say, the cost of doing trade on the continent is too high. It's like adding another tariff onto goods of over 300%. With that, it's very difficult to compete. And we can bring some of those costs down by digitizing some of our trading processes, implementing the trade facilitation agreement of the World Trade Organization. We've shown that countries that implemented it have seen their trade costs come down dramatically. But the average implementation worldwide is 70-something%, but for our continent it's 40-something. Okay, so why don't our countries implement that and help to bring the costs of trade down?
Former Vice President of Nigeria, Osinbajo, while speaking, emphasized the need to look at regulations to aid startup businesses in Africa.
Who spoke to that? The whole question of market access. And that is so crucial. I mean, and that's a very crucial part of our work, to ensure that startups in Africa have market access. Yeah. In other words, they're able to do cross-border transactions. And the way to do cross-border transactions is to make entry level and barriers to lower barriers and make entry easier. Yeah. And the way to do that really is looking at regulations. How can we help? How can we handhold, literally, our startups so that they can do business in any of our jurisdictions? And that involves quite a bit of work. It involves the foundation itself engaging in the practice in every jurisdiction and bringing the help and results of that to our own startups.
Staying with the UN General Assembly, the alarming statistics that 1 in 5 girls worldwide is married before age 18, with even higher rates in the least developed countries, prompted the SDG Media Zone discussion to emphasize the urgent need for systemic change. Panelists at the SDG Media Zone, a side event of the 79th UNGA, called for comprehensive legal and social reforms to protect the rights of women and empower them for a better future. News Centre's Chidamma Ona shares more.
Child marriage has long been a devastating issue in Africa. In the least developed countries, the statistics are even more alarming, with 36% of girls married before adulthood and 10% before age 15. At the SDG Media Zone in New York, a prominent panel moderated by Kayode Akintemi, Managing Director and Editor-in-Chief of News Central, confronted this urgent issue. The First Lady of Sierra Leone also shared her efforts to combat early child marriage in our country.
Early marriage, in my own definition, is a form of legalizing rape. That's my own definition of early marriage, because a child cannot give consent. And if a child cannot give consent and then you allow a child to be married, that means you're forcing somebody else to rape that child. And since becoming the First Lady of Sierra Leone in 2018, I took it upon myself to make it my agenda so that people have to stop these cruel habits. And 7 years later, we are now able to ban the practice because I've managed to get the whole nation to understand the effect of early marriage on our girls.
The impact of early child marriage on African women and girls is profoundly damaging. During the discussion, Natalia Kanem emphasized that child marriage not only severely limits their educational and economic opportunities, but also threatens the lives and health of young girls.
If you know that the pelvic system of a young girl by under 19 is not fully developed, it's about 80 to 88% developed, then you know what the ramifications are when she has to undergo sexual intercourse and carry a full pregnancy. So they have complications of obstructed labor. They can have uterine rupture and they can die. And if they don't die, there are morbidities that they have after that pregnancy.
To effectively address this issue, a shift in social norms is essential. Panelists explore the reasons why eradicating child marriage has proven challenging.
Why, therefore, is the issue still remaining very persistent? It's basically 4 issues. One is that this is a violation, a violence against girls that had almost been normalized when it should not be normal because it's abuse and rape.
Time and again, African women and girls have stood up and told us what they want. And the best protection that we have is for an African girl to know her rights, for an African girl to know her own body, for an African girl to be encouraged that the sky is the limit and that we are going to back her up.
As discussions progress on improving Africa, empowering women and addressing girl-child marriage are seen as crucial issues. The panel delivered a clear message. The time to act is now, as the lives and futures of millions hinge on decisive action against child marriage. In Lagos for News Central, Chidinma Ona.
Thank you for staying with us, and thanks to Chidinma for that report. We're joined now by senior international correspondent here at News Central, Adeshawa Josh. Adeshawa, you have been following today's event. What are the key highlights for you?
Yes, I have indeed. I've been listening to the speech, and I was pretty excited by almost everything I heard from the leaders from Malawi to Kenya, to Central African Republic, Sudan, and Cote d'Ivoire. They've all been talking very enthusiastically about the change they want to see in Africa, and also about the change that their governments are also championing. There are 3 themes that I personally took to heart. One of them is debt cancellation. Almost all of them agree that the rate at which African countries borrow is too high, and it seems as if there is a consensus to keep Africa in perpetual debt. Because how do you explain why many African countries have to borrow like 10 times higher than their counterparts in the West? So they're looking to their lenders to figure out how to reduce the interest rate on some of the borrowing they have done before and they will be doing in the nearest future. The entire continent is said to have over $800 billion in debt, and many African countries are servicing these debts with like 65% at least of their GDP. Ruto mentioned, that's President William Ruto of Kenya, mentioned something about having to decide between whether to invest in infrastructure development or to default on your debt. And this is a big issue that they want the international community to look into, not because it is unusual to borrow, but because it is unusual that African countries are perceived too risky to be loaned money at a normal interest rate. One of the things that came up very strongly in those conversations is the issue of security and terrorism. There are three main conflicts in the world right now that is claiming lives and property. It is, you go from Ukraine to Lebanon and Gaza, and of course here in Africa you speak about Sudan. The head of the Sudanese army, which is Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, spoke passionately about what his country is going through and how his country has now become a place of proxy war for regional powers, which is true, according to a lot of experts. The UAE supports Hamdan Dagalo, the head of the RSF, which is the Rapid Support Forces Development Group, also popularly known as Janjaweeds. These were the guys that Omar al-Bashir, the long-serving leader of Sudan, used to quell the uprising in Darfur. And now they've become such a strong force that it is becoming difficult for the national army to work with them because the head, which is Emeti, Dagalo, wants, he is not ready to roll back some of his powers as they consider transition to civilian rule. Very complicated issue there in Sudan, but there seems to be a consensus within the country to look for options and solutions as to how to quell the conflict within its borders.
Yeah.
There was also a lot of conversations around AI, but I'd like to leave it there right now.
Yeah, there is so much today. I actually followed a bit, but there's one I'd like to talk to you about. Chidinma put a report together on a side event where they talked about child marriage. And then we had the comment from the Sierra Leonean First Lady who talked about the work that they are doing with child marriage. In 2024, we still have conversations about child marriage in Africa. What is your thinking about the submission of the panelists on what Africa needs to do to get us away from this behavior?
It's that we should criminalize the behavior. You know, for the longest time, they say that where there is no law, there is no sin, there is no conflict. So now that a policy, people, governments, right now, I would say Sierra Leone, because there are other countries in Africa that have made this whole anti-child marriage a policy. But the biggest problem is implementation and enforcement. So Sierra Leone, I read earlier about, 800,000 girls is subjected to child marriage almost every year. And this is a big issue. It's almost a pandemic in that country. And that's why the First Lady spoke about the work she's been doing for the last 7 years in trying to make this a policy, which is there shall no longer be any underage child in any form of marriage from now on. And now that she's gotten that policy approved, that law approved, now there are implications of anyone who breaks it as a law. It's now it's been signed into law. So she mentioned, I don't remember the number of years that anyone who breaks the law would go to jail for, but now that it has been criminalized, enforcement is what is next. And we heard the MD Kayode Akitemi, asking how she intends to enforce the law, because it is one thing to have the law, it is another thing to have it enforced. And you can see that the panelists have reached a consensus that there are actually underlying factors that is still making the issue of child marriage prevalent in Africa. Two main factors, cultural and religious factors. Those are two things that are driving it. And it is not just the lower middle class that are involved in this practice. It is also the elites and very powerful people in the society. And those are the ones that are going to be probably more challenging, because when you have someone who is powerful and has all the connections, who is engaged in marrying young girls off because of economic reasons, how do you put such people behind the bars? So it is a very intense and interesting conversation around child marriage in Africa, and there's a lot has been said about how that is also affecting the productivity of the continent, because when you have young girls who grow up into traumatized young women, they cannot function at their best.
True.
As
I mean,
life
the submissions were really in-depth, and of course, it's a concern that we should stop talking and start acting, and the time is now. Maybe we'll replicate what Sierra Leone is doing. I think that's part of some of the things that they said. Adeshawa, thank you for speaking with us.
My pleasure.
If you've just joined us, you're watching Tonight. A reminder of our top stories. African leaders denounce unilateralism, militarization at United Nations General Assembly. INEC presents certificate of return to Edo Governor-elect Monday, Okpebholo. Court sentences 5 to death over offer bank robbery. Federal government to toll Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, second Niger Bridge, others. Nigeria's federal government has kick-started activities lined up for the nation's 64th anniversary celebration. Secretary to the federal government, in company with several cabinet ministers, urged citizens to celebrate the day, saying much has been achieved in the last 64 years. Amadine Uyi reports.
It was a briefing to kickstart the commencement of Nigeria's 64th independence celebration. In attendance were senior government officials, cabinet members, amongst others.
The 64th independence anniversary calls for a combination of critical actions on our part as citizens and collectively as a nation. These actions include a reflection on our past and a determination to raise the banner of hope, progress, peace, unity, and development.
The Secretary to the Government of the Federation, while reflecting on the journey so far, urged citizens to celebrate the nation's democratic odyssey.
We must recognize with pride our journey to a stable and broken democratic sovereignty, which has spanned 25 years since 1999.
Other cabinet members present took time to highlight key achievements in their ministries.
In 1960, there were 45 million of them. That was the population of Nigeria. Now we are fivefold. There are 230 million of us. Not surprisingly, demand for government services, infrastructure, financing to fund education, health services, and compete with other nations have grown significantly.
In a landmark move, President Tinubu has taken a decisive step toward implementing local government autonomy by seeking a verdict from the Supreme Court. This action demonstrates his administration's commitment to a deep-rooted restructuring of the country, enhancing governance and development at the grassroots level. and also promoting effectiveness and accountability at local government level.
We are addressing the design of our roads based on the subsoil and the water table. And the funding is also a challenge. But in the ingenuity of Mr. President, he has introduced renewed hope infrastructure funding, where a number of projects are migrated into this funding program.
So what we did and what we've done for the last 10 months has been to develop a program, a curriculum, a new curriculum that will involve, integrate knowledge, skills, trades, and values.
The independence celebration, which comes up on October the 1st, will have the president give a State of the Nation address. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
To politics. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has presented a certificate of return to the winner of the Edo State governorship election, Monday, Okpebholo, of the All Progressive Congress, APC. The ceremony took place at the INEC headquarters in Abuja on Thursday. INEC declared Okpebholo winner of the Saturday, September 21 election after polling 291,667 votes to beat his closest contender, Edo Governor-elect of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, who polled 247,274 votes. Olumide Akpata of the Labour Party came a distant third in the race with 22,763 votes. 14 other candidates contested the seat, but got less than 3 frontline candidates.
For conducting a free and fair election. And we are so happy that we have collected the certificate of return now.
A new dawn in Edo. We now have a humble, gentle, but focused, practical guy who will translate the dreams of Edo to reality. I'm excited and vindicated, and I'm happy that Okpebholo is our governor-elect, and by the grace of God, a new Edo obviously is going to rise immediately is sworn in. So I'm so happy and excited. Joining forces with those that we have always contended with in all elections, obviously it was easy for us to just have the street right, and that is what you saw. Now we are all united now in Edo North and in East West, and that gave us all the results that you see.
In the meantime, members of the PDP in Edo State, under the aegis of Asue Ogie Mandate Recovery Group, have demanded the declaration of Asue Ighodalo and Osarodion Ogie as the governor and deputy governor-elect of Edo State. This was among some demands of the protesting members of the party who protested to demand the recomputing of the results of last Saturday's election declared by INEC in favor of the APC.
By the people and for the people, we are asking, we have 3 demands. Number 1, this INEC resident officer should be fired with automatic effect and with immediate effect and automatic alacrity. Those in support say, "Ah!" And the ayes have it. INEC, by INEC guideline, have 7 days before to review results before they declare. So what is the hurry? You have 7 days to review complaint before you. So we are saying with immediate effect that the announcement declaring APC as a winner should be withdrawn with immediate effect. Those in support say, "Ah!" And finally, the true winner of this election, 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 Dr. Asue Ighodalo or Saturday Ogie of the People's Democratic Party should be declared governor and governor-elect of the over 5 million people of Edo State. Those in support say,
Let's bring you one of our lead stories tonight. 5 individuals involved in the Offa robbery incidents have been found guilty of illegal possession of firearms, armed robbery, and culpable homicide. Justice Halima Salman of the Kwara State High Court stated that the offences are punishable by death. The incident, which occurred at 5 banks in Offa local government area in 2018, left no less than 32 people dead, including 9 police officers, 2 of whom were women. The convicted individuals include Ayoade Akini-Bosun, Aziz Salahuddin, Niyi Ogudiran, Ibikunle Ogunleye, and Adeola Abraham. The 6th suspect, Michael Adiku, a retired police officer, died in custody before the trial commenced. Let's also tell you that the Minister of Works, Dave Umahi, says the federal government will toll all major roads in the country upon completion of construction and renovation. He listed some of the roads as Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, 2nd Niger Bridge, Abuja-Kanu Road, and Makurdi Night Mile, among others. The former Ebonyi State Governor said the tolling of federal roads is going to bring a lot of money to the federal government. Umahi said private sector members have been engaged to bring in funds, construct the roads, work with the Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission and the Ministry of Works to toll the roads. Nigeria's National Oil Spill Detection Response Agency has expressed its willingness to collaborate with all relevant stakeholders to ensure effective monitoring of oil spills in the Niger Delta region in a bid to support the nation's climate change action plan. The executive director of the agency made this known as he received a delegation from the Stakeholder Democracy Network in the nation's capital, Abuja, where they informed him of a tool developed to help manage emissions and sought the support of the agency for its adoption.
There are some solutions emerging, particularly using satellite-based technology to identify hotspots where methane is emerging, which enable regulators like Nostra and other agencies to then cooperate with oil and gas companies and others to help respond to that emissions, fix the problem, and reduce the impact on the environment. So
The Chief Executive Officer of the Transcorp Hotels in Abuja, Dupe Olushola, has launched the Next Generation Foundation, an initiative aimed at supporting the education of underserved and vulnerable children. The Chief Executive, while marking her 50th birthday celebration in Abuja, says that the initiative is part of a lifelong commitment to empowering others and utilizing the transformative power of education. She adds that while education changes lives, it opens doors to a fulfilled future with opportunities for children who have been left behind. Odutola revealed that the foundation will be commencing its 50 by 50 project, a multi-layer scholarship program starting in the 2024-2025 academic session for 50 children between the ages of 6 and 18 from low-income families. Thousands of mourners stood before rows of small white coffins on Thursday at a memorial service for 21 children who died in a boarding school fire in central Kenya earlier this month. The coffins were topped with bouquets of flowers and photographs of the young boys from Hillside and the Rasha Academy in a Yeri town, most between 9 and 13, trapped in the dormitory. Kenya has a sad history of school fires. There were more than 60 cases of arson in public secondary schools in 2018, according to most recent data in a parliamentary report. Let's join our business team now for today's business updates.
Business news in association with Money Master PSB, the easy way to master your money.
Nigeria's federal government, through the National Salaries, Incomes and Wages Commission, has stated that the payment of the new minimum wage will commence from July 2024. The NSIWC chairman, Ekpo Inta, said this during a press briefing on Tuesday in Abuja. The commission stated that this was because the date in question was when the president approved the bill after the National Assembly passed it. The development is contrary to an earlier statement by the Minister of State for Labour, Nkiruka Onyenjocha, that the payment would commence on May 1, 2024. Last week, the Committee on Consequential Adjustments in Salaries for Civil Servants met on Friday as regards the new minimum wage template and agreed that the effective date for the implementation of the new minimum wage be set at July 29, 2024. South African motorists can expect fuel prices to fall again on Wednesday, October 2, when the adjustments kick in, the Automobile Association announced in a media statement on Thursday. The price of 93-octane unleaded petrol is expected to be 1.05 rand per litre lower, while that of 95-octane petrol will be 1.13 rand per litre less. Diesel prices are forecast to drop between 1.10 rand per litre and 1.12 rand per litre, according to the current unaudited data from the Central Energy Fund. According to the AA, the cumulative effect of the expected decrease means a motorist filling a 50-litre tank with 93-octane unleaded petrol will save approximately 220.50 rand compared to that in May. On Thursday, oil prices fell by more than 3% amid reports that Saudi Arabia, the world's largest crude exporter, is set to raise output and abandon its unofficial target price of $100 per barrel. Brent crude futures dropped by $2.26 or 3.1% to $71.20 per barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude fell by $2.31 or 3.3% to $67.38 as of 13:23 GMT. A report by the Financial Times suggested that Saudi Arabia is shifting its strategy as OPEC Plus prepares to increase output in December. Two sources from OPEC Plus said that the group's planned output hike in December is expected to have minimal impact as larger cuts from overproducing members are anticipated in the coming months. OPEC Plus has been curbing output to stabilize prices, though the potential output hike signals a shift in the group's strategy. Neither Saudi Arabia nor OPEC provided immediate comments on the reports. And that's all on business news. I am Lekon Onobanjo.
And in sports, Austin Eguavon is set to continue as interim Super Eagles coach, while Anthony Joshua and Daniel Dubois are talking about a rematch. Onyinyechi Obaro has more details.
Sports Update, brought to you by Corn Oil. Corn Oil, we go the extra mile.
In the world of sport, the University of Lagos women's relay team clinched the gold medal in the 4x100 meters event at the ongoing FASU Games. Led by Ugo Osuji, the Unilag quartet crossed the finish line in the impressive time of 48.76 seconds, leaving their competitors far behind. Lagos State University secured the silver medal with a time of 55.97 seconds, while Lagos State University of Technology took home the bronze medal at 60.97 seconds, marking a clean sweep for Nigerian universities in the women's category. In the men's category, universities from Ghana swept the podium places. The University of Ghana narrowly claimed gold in 40.61 seconds, while Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology finished second with 40.70 seconds. The University of Development Study, UDS, claimed the bronze medal with a time of 41.78 seconds. Co-host Unilag finished fourth. The Nigerian Football Federation on Thursday announced that its technical director, Augustine Eguavon, will remain in charge as interim coach of the Super Eagles. This follows the recommendation of its Technical and Development Subcommittee. The 58-year-old Eguavon, in his fourth spell in charge, steered the three-time African champions to a 3-0 defeat of Benin Republic and scoreless draw with Rwanda in match days 1 and 2 earlier this month. Eguavon will also take charge of the Super Eagles B team for the qualifying campaign for next year's African Nations Championship. Meanwhile, the Executive Committee also approved for coach Justin Madugu to take charge of the senior women's national team, the Super Falcons, pending the appointment of a substantive head coach. The Super Falcons' next task in the Women's African Cup of Nations finals takes place in Morocco in the summer of 2025. Nigeria's Flying Eagles face a stern challenge ahead of the 2024 Under-20 Waffle B Championship, with the draw placing them in a tough Group B alongside regional powerhouses Burkina Faso and Côte d'Ivoire. The draw conducted on Thursday afternoon will see Group A played out among hosts Togo, Niger Republic, Ghana and Benin Republic. The top 2 teams from each group will progress to the semi-finals of the tournament, which serves as the qualifier for the Under-20 AFCON scheduled for January 2025 in South Africa. The Under-20 AFCON, as always, will serve as the continental qualifier for the 2025 Under-20 World Cup, which will take place in Chile. Finally, in the world of sport, the heavyweight rematch between Anthony Joshua and Daniel Dubois seems increasingly likely and could take place in February 2025. Dubois was a huge underdog coming into the first contest at Wembley Stadium, but spectacularly knocked out his British rival in a stunning upset to retain his IBF title. The next big fight in the heavyweight division is Alexander Usyk's clash against Tyson Fury in December. It had seemed likely that Dubois would wait for the winner. However, it would appear a rematch with Joshua seems more realistic. Frank Warren, Dubois' promoter, has revealed that the Dynamite's next fight will take place early next year and is very much open to a rematch between the two heavyweight giants, with February 22 penciled for a fight card in Riyadh. And that's it in the world of sport. I am Onyinyechi Obaro.
Sports Update, brought to you by Corn Oil. Corn Oil, we go the extra mile.
Let's bring you entertainment update.
Entertainment news in association with Glow Unlimited.
Tonight on Entertainment News, Ghanaian dancehall musician Shatta Wale has criticized the youth for urging him to speak out against the detainment of Democratic Hub protester, part of the hashtag Free the Citizens campaign. In voice notes shared on X, he expressed frustration, stating that the youth had previously been indifferent to his criticisms of various issues in Ghana, including the entertainment industry. Shatta Wale accused them of being misled by self-serving individuals and warned them not to involve him in the advocacy campaign. He emphasized that he's untouchable in the entertainment industry due to his outspoken nature, contrasting himself with the protesters, whom he claimed did not take their actions seriously. The protesters were arrested during a demonstration concerning illegal small-scale mining and economic mismanagement, leading to confrontations with the police. They have been charged with multiple offenses, including conspiracy to commit crime and unlawful assembly, and are scheduled to reappear in court on October 8, 2024, after pleading not guilty to all charges. Meta is evolving from a social media platform into an AI leader, unveiling achievements in its smart glasses, AI initiatives, and other technologies during its annual Connect conference. The company is introducing celebrity voice options for its AI chatbot, with notable figures like Dame Judi Dench, John Cena, Aquafina, Christine Bell, and Keegan-Michael Key lending their voices. This update allows users to interact with the AI in a more natural way, including recognizing photographed items and offering editing suggestions based on user commands. Currently, over 400 million people use Meta AI monthly, with 185 million returning weekly. Meta has invested heavily in AI, AR, and metaverse technologies, expecting to spend up to $40 billion on new projects this year. While While the company's stock value has increased significantly, the event was marred by misinformation spreading on social media, falsely claiming users must repost content to protect it from being used in AI training. Meta clarified that users can object to content usage through a formal submission process. That's all on Entertainment Tonight.
And that's all we have for you tonight. But before we go, let's take another look at the headlines. African leaders have denounced unilateralism, militarization at the United Nations General Assembly. INEC has presented certificate of return to Edo Governor-elect Monday, Okpebholo. Court has sentenced 5 to death over offer bank robbery. We also brought you news that the federal government is set to toll Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, Second Niger Bridge, others. Do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and on YouTube. As always, it's been great having you here. Thank you for watching. I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.